Okay, I'll admit this list for this week looks a little bit nuts, but let's kind of break it down. And please know that part of the reason it's a little nuts is that there's just a lot to learn in this new topic about feedback and communication and giving reflection and peer feedback. Also, please know I messed up when I did the all group announcement on Wednesday and I said you had all week to do the responses. I get off on which week we're in the unit, and I know last week you finished your responses on Sunday, so I'm sorry if I messed you up on that. I'm always like a week behind you in the grading, and so it throws me sometimes. So this is the first week of Unit 4, and so keep in mind that although ideally, I'd like you to at least touch each of these resources. You may not get a chance to really dig in with both hands and both feet, perhaps, until the second week. But do get at least the Atwell reading done, and I think you're really going to get a lot out of the guest lecture. That's been a favorite when I've taught this course several other times. So in the Atwell, we're doing responding to writers and responding to readers. In the this guest lecture is actually a teacher in my own kids district. She was phenomenal for my now freshman. He was an eighth grader when he had her, and she's an eighth grade teacher at a high scoring district, and she just has some great things to say about this. It will be reinforced by some of these articles right down here. This Edutopia also talks about interactive rubrics as assessment. So these two kind of are good companion pieces. I think along with, when we talk about feedback, ultimately we're also talking about evaluation and making sure we're valuing student writing. That's Atwell as well. So you're reading 3 chapters in Atwell, watching this guest lecture that pairs nicely with the interactive rubrics. For this piece right here, if you needed to wait for a for next week for something, this one might be a good one to put on hold, but I really liked it. It's actually dictation technology, and I was just actually talking to my middle son's enrichment teacher, which is our gifted and talent program, and we're talking about how, although Alec is a gifted student, he struggles sometimes to put words on a page. He's got great verbal skills, and he's really strong vocabulary and elaborates really well, but sometimes he has a hard time putting those ideas on the page. And then this talks a little bit about giving students some of those helps and supports. I know that many of us worry that we're not going to have much technology when we get into our classrooms, but usually there's at least one computer in a classroom. Not always, but at least one. And I wonder how we can really use that computer well. And I also wonder if money would be more available if we would show that we have good use of technology. More and more schools are going to bring your own technology programs, and if a student had even a smartphone even, some of these tools would be very helpful. Rubistar, Read, Write, Think, and any other resource that you find that could help you to start formatting rubrics would be great. In the past, I've had students say, what if I find a rubric that I really like? Can I use it? Absolutely. I would suggest at least looking at it to modify it, but if you'll notice on the rubrics for this class, they actually came from Read, Write, Think, and I just modified them. But I gave credit for them, and I modified them to fit our course. So these are all tools for rubric building. You are welcome to start from scratch, but you don't have to. We already talked about this one. This right here, Reflective Writing and the Revision Process, What Are You Thinking by Sandra Giles, is a article that is linked in the classroom. And then peer editing and the writing process. This is from the company Turnitin that does the plagiarism type stuff, but it was a really neat webcast about, and of course they're going to peddle their program, but I thought it was a neat idea. Finally, we have just writing across the curriculum. Some of you are going to teach other types of writing, and how can we make that a live a worthwhile and relevant activity. So lots going on for the reading and videos. I understand it's heavy. Again, spread it out over 2 weeks, but make sure you hit the Atwell and the interactive rubric stuff and have these sites out before you go into week 2. So I would say from this point right here on up, I would definitely want to read and access in week 1, okay? all of it ideally, but it may not be able to happen. Okay, so the discussion board this week is talking about feedback and what you value. A lot of you have talked about this already when I've asked you about what your good experiences are, so I'm sorry for the redundancy, but I think especially looking this time at your role as student editor and how that feels, but instead of just talking about all the problems with it, what do you think we could specifically do to fix some of the problems in the editing process in the classroom with feedback and editing process? So just kind of, and they don't have to be silver bullets. I don't think there is such a thing, but consider what we could fix. Okay, for the blog this week, we're going to talk about rubrics. We're going to talk about what features and practices you're envisioning to respond to student writers, when in the writing process that you'll do this, when will you do peer editing, what will it look like for your age group, for your content area, for your vision. And then I want you to share one rubric source or idea from the readings that you specialize in, and that's where this comes in. Look at one of these and share out about it on how you would potentially use this resource. And it can be something you dug up in another class too. Side note, the Kathy Schrock website that we talked about last week, I believe, has some great rubric concepts on it as well. Then where it says building on your 4 tasks, for the wiki, I'm not going to even go there right now because I think we have a lot to look at this week. Remember, you're posting and this week and doing the reading. Next week, we'll do the replies and the wiki. All right? And you'll notice if you peek ahead at the wiki that a lot of what we're doing this week is going to feed into the wiki. So maybe do some earmarking and tabbing so that when you go to do the reflection exercise and the peer editing exercise and a grading rubric for each of your writing tasks, you want to start thinking eventually that's what this is going to all siphon down into. All right, that was a lot. Just want to leave you with a few thoughts on feedback and also consider time management. I know a lot of times we have some really ideal ideas about how we want to give feedback and how much time it's going to take us. I want to challenge you to set up structures and schedules and styles that are not going to beat you into the ground as a teacher. You know, that first year out when you're already doing your resident educator stuff and that kind of thing. What are you going to do to set up best practices in your classroom to fit your style and to make it so that you can breathe? You have to build in time to come up for air as a teacher. Otherwise, you burn out, and we don't want that. So think about that as you look at some of these ideal scenarios and what is it really going to look like in a classroom scenario. When I just walked into my 12-year-old's class the other day and there were 30 kids in that class. What are you going to do when 30 compositions come in? What are some things? Start thinking of all of these ideal tools and what we really want each kid to go away with, and then how we're going to make that happen with time sensitivity and good structures involved. So these are just things. Obviously, no silver bullet answers, but things to think about. I have shared out with you, I believe, before that one thing that I have tried to do is create a conversation with students about their papers. Sometimes using those tools actually takes me a little bit more time, and so I have to weigh out whether or not that's effective. Something that I've tried this semester in some of my own writing classes in terms of feedback is putting more of the feedback on the students for informal writings, and I've been setting up more discussion boards. Again, I have a technology-rich classroom because my classroom actually meets in the computer lab, but this might be something that if your students are if you are in a situation where you do have that a lot of writing practice can be done online. And I'm finding that in my high school setting as well, and it is an online class, admittedly, the discussion board piece is really generating some excellent writing and idea generation, and a lot of writing practice comes from consistent and constant exposure to writing. So things to think about and ponder, and of course dig up good experiences and bad, but come up with some fixes. What's going to fix that feedback scenario? One last thought. I remember very distinctly in my student teaching, I had a peer editing day planned, and my student teaching supervisor, and maybe this is going to be like a no-brainer for you, said, how are you going to make sure that they know what to look for and that you're really guiding them in this? And I definitely recommend a rubric for students to use. And that, again, I'm going to peddle this interactive rubric a little bit more. is where you might find some solutions. Have fun with this week and let me know if you have any questions.